This series contains adult content and graphic language and is not intended for all audiences. Africa Bambatta has denied all allegations of child sexual abuse and the sexual abuse of minors. To protect their anonymity, the voices of some people interviewed were altered at their request.
That thirst for music to be what curated was always in the air.
Everything we thought, lived, breathed, and experienced, you could hear in our music.
That's why it's debatable when people start talking about the origins of hip hop. But the Bronx was its own dynamic because it was closed out of a lot of situations. And if they had events in the Bronx, it would totally have to be something that was on the other side of what was going down in Manhattan, and the availability was different. Because, you could get somebody to go to Harlem, you probably couldn't get somebody to go to the Bronx, so they did their own thing.
Soundtrack of my life may really be putting it lightly. It's more like lifeblood or lifeline. The entire Black experience was in that music. And it wasn't only political. Some of it was foolishness. Some of it was Wild Man Steve and Red Fox records and Richard Pryor records. It's the same thing I say about hip hop. A lot of times people say, oh, I loved hip hop when it was positive. And I'm like, when are you talking about? Because we've always been everything. We've never only been one thing.
This was a time when men were men. You know what I mean? Like, we coming straight out of the 70s and we got heroes like Shaft and, you know what I mean? Isaac Hayes and motherfuckers like that. Like, ain't nobody trying to hear no Fosse Boy business like that. You understand what I'm saying?
In the 60s, you had Vietnam. And you had people come back from Vietnam in the early 70s, and when Vietnam supposedly ended in 1972. And Black men, especially, were still kind of like treated as not being equal, although there was demands to like, okay, I fought in the Vietnam War. I suffered injuries, some of us died. I'm coming back. Where's my job? Where's my community? It's gone down since I left. Where am I getting service? Where's my chance? And then you had the junkies and the pushers also note that they can deal some of this to people in need and create maybe veterans and the junkies, people in a crumbling neighborhood looking for hope and despair, turning them into somebody that kind of needs a fix. Same thing with jails. The statistics said it was 100,000 Black men in prison in 1970. Here in the millennium, they say it's close to 2 million. Crime started to happen because of a lot of different reasons that got pushed onto the Black community. And the upstate situation that happened in the jails coming from downstate was really toxic at that time, incendiary. Animosity was growing from the disenfranchisement that was taking place.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
That was a very, very tough time because I remember being in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and I remember that pressure from the police. And it was hardcore.
New York at the time was under extreme financial duress, major crisis. The social fabric was tearing. This was only a few years after Dr. King was killed, a few years after Bobby Kennedy was killed, so there was a lot of turmoil. then you had also the movements. The Black Panther Party was coming to kind of a head at that point. You also had the Latino group, the Young Lords, that came out of the gang movement that were trying to do socially progressive work, but they were up against a very entrenched, embedded system. COINTELPRO was in full effect. Everybody was just trying to figure out ways to survive, and the gangs rose up because people had claimed territories and fighting over the different areas, and it was a rough deal.
This is my brother D. He was the president of the division of the Black Spades, first chapter, first division. He was the reason that Bambatta came into his division. That's where it all began.
We started off because we couldn't go in different areas of the Bronx. We're black youth, and we'll get beat up if we go 2-3 blocks up the block. We'll get beat up. You know, no, we had to stop that. So they formed the Black Spades, and we started going around where we wanted to go. And if we had any resistance, we would take care of that resistance. We'll fight back. And once we stopped fighting back, then we was able to go further and further and further. Every part of the Bronx, where there were police precincts, there was a Black Spades division, especially at the Fort Apache one, because they was giving us the most problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, those cops was dirty over there. They always want to come in and push us around and try to intimidate us.
It was much larger than the police force.
Yeah, after a while, they had to, just stand back and watch us, because it was like a mini bus, and, very few of them. He was a young spade. I brought him into my division and made him a Black Spade. He was my treasurer. And then when Franklin quit, I needed another war counselor. So I had Bambatta just do it until I could find somebody more suitable. But he did it. He get information from me, and we know about other gangs if we have any problems, and we'll make a decision if we're gonna fight or we're gonna talk it off. He wasn't a vicious person. I wouldn't send him to do anything that's to harm anybody, No, he wasn't that type of guy.
We were the first ones to come into the Bronx River with a sound system and got the power from Bam's house.
Mario had equipment. He asked Mario for the equipment so he can have his first party, because he didn't have no equipment at the time. If you see me being a DJ, you see Mario being a DJ, then you're gonna say, "Oh, I can do that. I can do that." So other people start picking it up on it, and they buying equipment, especially after the blackout, when they were broke in the stores and they stole the equipment and stuff like that. All DJs start popping up out of the woodworks in 77, 76. So that's how it went.